And welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Usama Darkwing Dakdok, one of the finest apologists in America, and we're discussing Islam, the Jewish sources, the Bible, and Abraham, and just how the Quran gets it so wrong. Usama, please tell us why we're here, because as you know, going through these Islamic sources just leaves me scratching my head and leaves me with huge headaches. Tell us more, please, and welcome back. Good to see you again after your amazing trip.
Brother Lloyd, it's always good to be with you and all your wonderful audience. It's been a long 10 days. We have not talked. I believe last time I have to make a trip out of the United States, and I'm back, and we are back. Hopefully, briefly, that we'll continue to be back. So be back with us, our dear wonderful audience. Like us and share this video with others. Even if you don't like us because of Lloyd, you have to like us because of me. This
yeah. Everyone says we're a great team except for me.
No, I'm kidding. Anyway, well, here's the deal. Why are we talking about that? You see, Muslims have heard the lie for a long time. And that lie was repeated and repeated and repeated. And they actually believe it. They believe it without investigating it. They believe it without searching. Is it true that what we have in the Quran is the perfect word of Allah? And it's easy to talk to the Muslim and they will tell you, well, the Bible is corrupted. Well, this and that. But we got the real book. We got the final revelation, the word of Allah. And Muslims never ask questions. So I'm hoping and praying through our study here that we will make them, use their wheels up here in their heads and start asking questions. Where does this information came from? Was it really a revelation given to Muhammad from Allah through Jibreel, or maybe this information came from some other sources? As we have been doing so far, it's sad. It's terribly sad. Most Muslims believe in the Quran to be the perfect word of Allah, without error, without any contradiction, pure Arabic, easy to understand. Even though 90+% of the Muslims never read the Quran in the Arabic language, and they do not know that the Quran is not a pure Arabic or an easy book to understand. So Abraham is a wonderful story because we find out that majority of the story of Abraham in the Quran come out of other sources, not just the Bible. Forget about the Bible. Other sources. We know these books like the Legend of the Jews, Talmud, Mishnah, whatever else. And these materials were written 200, 500 years after Christ. It's a big problem, Lloyd. It is a big problem. If it's an old books from Abraham days, we say, yeah, what we have about Abraham in the Genesis account is not true. And these are the true sources of Abraham. But I'm sorry to tell you, not even a Jewish man or a woman with logic or common sense will ever believe that which is written in the Quran, because now we know where it come from. Late materials written 200, 500 after Christ. And it's lots of fairy tales. When I was a kid, Lloyd, I read the stories of the Quran, and I always wonder, where did Muhammad come up with this? Where did Muhammad come up with this? Because I'm familiar with the Genesis account concerning Abraham. And now I got the answer. It is the legends of the Jews, whatever sources.
You know what's amazing? Islam relies on pre-Quranic narratives for its own stories, but it retells them and strips out all of the details that would make them coherent, and it's also unable to provide critical details that would make them something that is genuinely historical or coherent as a full story. For instance, if you ask a Muslim, show me from the Quran how you would convince, as you said before, a Jew that Jesus is the Messiah, because there's just not enough detail. And then also it uses later stories, right? Like the stories from the Gnostic Gospels as Christian stories, which are later than the founding of Christianity. So it's using legends, children's tales, Gnostic stories, heresies, all sorts of anything but the actual sources. But yet, the Tafsir specifically require those original sources to actually clarify the stories. And it's a crazy mix.
You see, for some Muslims, you cannot find errors in the Quran because there is no information in the Quran. I mean, how in the world you can tell me that there's anything wrong about Abraham when you don't know anything about Abraham from the Quran? And if you don't have access to the true biblical account of Abraham, for sure you got the truth in the Quran. Yes, indeed. Wow.
I mean, it's a bad case of broken telephone, right? I mean, the Quran is made up from the Midrash, the Targum, the Apocrypha, the Israeliyat, as they call them, the Tafsirs, the Gnostic Gospels. I mean, the Jesus in the Quran is all mostly from the Gnostic Gospels, which are from the 2, 3, and 4, 500s. And then we're supposed to believe that this is now the true story of Jesus, when these are later sources in the actual Gospels. It's just, it's just broken telephone. That's the Quranic.
It will not help the Muslim to believe that Jesus spoke as a babe. It will not help the Muslim to believe that Jesus created bird out of clay when he was 11 years old. I mean, that goes against the teaching of Islam. Allah is the creator. Now you have Isa as a creator who breathes into the mud, which is the bird made out of mud, and here we go, the bird flew. So we Christians don't believe in that. The first miracle Jesus performed was changing the water to the wine in the wedding of Galilee, 30 years old. How can you make Isa, son of Mary, talk like a baby? I mean, it's wonderful things, but I'm sorry, it will not help the Muslim because it goes against the beliefs of Islam that Allah is the creator. Now we have Isa as the creator, and at the same time, we Christians don't believe in it. Not any denomination of any of the Christian believe in that. Period.
Yeah. So to pick up where we left off, we ended with the confrontation with Nimrod and Abraham, and this is mentioned in Genesis Rabbah 38, where the Midrash accounts, or the Midrash, how Abraham smashed the idols in his father's shop, and he debated with Nimrod about the worship of fire, water, clouds, and wind, which is alluded to, although completely diluted, in the Quranic stories, right? And then he was thrown into the fire, but saved by God. Now, this tradition is first attested in the writings of Pseudo-Philo in 50 to 150 AD. So this is not original to the Quran, but it's also not acknowledged as an actual legitimate religious story.
Mm-hmm.
So the explicit details of Nimrod dreaming a child would destroy idolatry is also a much later legendary and folkloric tradition rather than a direct midrashic text. So the Quran is incorporating even oral recitation, oral stories, children's tales, myths, legends.
Sure.
So
I believe Muhammad in his traveling, and I may be wrong, but that's what my thought. While he was traveling, he heard these stories, but nobody told him. By the way, Muhammad, we're talking about the story here in the Talmud, or no. He heard Abraham did this, Abraham said this, Abraham was here, Abraham was there, and he believed it to be. This is what it is written in the Bible. He copied that story, put in a poetry form, or some other people helped him to put in a poetry form, and here we are. We got the story of Abraham in the Quran. But did really Muhammad know where the story come from? I don't think so. I don't think so. Or he will never mention it the same way.
Yeah, so we ended up speaking on celestial reasoning. Abraham reflects on the
brother Lloyd. Before we move to the next one, I have a question for you. Do you think Muhammad, or those who helped Muhammad to write the Quran, were influenced by the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the three Hebrew people who were thrown to the fire? Because I see some similarity between these three young men who were thrown to the fire and that which is written in the Quran concerning Abraham. Do you think that there was some influence there, or maybe it's just my thought?
I would think so. Hold on, actually, let me actually just check. So yes, there would be a clear influence, because the Quranic account of Abraham being thrown into the fire in Quran 21:68 directly is a parallel of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the book of Daniel. They're cast into the furnace, but they are miraculously saved by God. So there's a thematic as well as a narrative borrowing from much earlier Judeo-Christian traditions into the Quran.
Okay. So it's not just my head here. Somebody else in agreement with me.
Yeah, I think I'll just add that here. So I'll actually just add that here as an additional note, and I'll send you the document. I've already emailed you the content, but I'll send you an update.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. Thank you.
Move on. Okay. So we've spoken of celestial reasoning. So Abraham also talks of the Lord of the worlds, right? Which is the very common Islamic term, but Abraham also alludes to that. So this would maybe give us a clue as to where this idea comes from, right? Within the Jewish tradition. And then, of course, he was raised among star worshippers. He reasoned that the sun, moon, and stars, though powerful, cannot be gods. And this is a theme that is actually discussed in Jewish philosophical texts, inspired by Midrashic ideas. So these ideas actually do go back. So therefore, the Quran would have taken it from existing conversations, even oral traditions within Judaism. The idol shop incident, this is in Genesis Rabbah 38. Sorry?
I was going to say, notice in the Quran, Allah did not say that his people worship the sun and moon and the star, but they actually worship idols. These are the idols which he destroyed with a hammer. And he bought the hammer, the biggest one.
But there's the Quranic verse where Abraham alludes to seeing the sun rise, seeing the moon rise, seeing the stars rise. So again, so it's, the idea is actually present, but very much stripped of all of its context.
It is what I call contradiction in the Quran. Why did Abraham worship the stars and the moon and the sun, and he rejected him to be God, to lead the people to worship the true God, Allah, as he's thinking in the Quran? In the same time, none of them actually worship these things. But so you see, there's I call internal contradiction. I have no idea why Muhammad put the story. He should just concentrate on the idols because he destroyed them. But obviously, Muhammad did not know.
Yeah, this loser is back again. Islam is the ultimate truth. He says, Alhamdulillah, in Pakistan, Muslims and Christians live in peace. We have a lot of churches in Pakistan and thriving Christian immunity. Usama's a liar is making money from spreading propaganda. Actually, you're a liar who is doing propaganda for free. At least Usama gets paid, which is smart.
Yeah.
So in Pakistan, Muslims terrorize Christians. They accuse them of blaspheming against Muhammad, of insulting Muhammad, and they have them killed. They beat them in the streets. They chase them out of towns. They, unfortunately, we know exactly what Islamic law is like. We know exactly what Muslims like. And in fact, if you go to Nigeria, 100,000 Christians a year are killed by Nigerians. But of course, this is never.
But these are not the real Muslims who are killing them. These are the bad Muslims. The good Muslims, the real Muslims, are loving and peaceful, like Muhammad, like Allah. Loving and peaceful, you know what I mean?
Muhammad was a torturer. Muhammad was a murderer. Muhammad was a slaver. Muhammad was a child rapist.
Sir. Now you talk like Islamophobe. That's not true. Are you sure? Do you have any evidence of that?
We've only got hundreds of videos on the topic.
Okay. Let's go back to Abraham, because our friend here like to talk about. Does he have anything else to talk about besides the peaceful Islam and the loving Islam? Anything else? Is this the only line he knows how to write?
I mean, look, it's a common theme, right? I mean, so Andrew Martin makes an interesting point. That's probably why Muhammad was quoting Abraham. He was changing his Sabaeanism to his Islam. Because remember, Muhammad is called a Sabi. And it is said in certain traditions that Muhammad was a Sabaean. So this would be very interesting. There's certainly something, because Muhammad as a Sabaean worshipping the sun, the moon, the stars, and the planets. And the stars may well be the planets as well. So yeah, there's something there. Of course, there's the fiery furnace when Nimrod casts Abraham into fire, right? God saves him. That's in Genesis Rabbah 38, and the Purke, the Rabbi Eliezer 26, right? Then there's the sacrifice with Satan's temptation. Now, Satan tries to stop Abraham and Isaac, although we must note that sometimes these things aren't explicitly listed. We might get a reference to an original source, but the story itself might have been inspired by a written source that doesn't actually quite say that, but there's an oral tradition that sprung from it that wasn't recorded. And then Isaac volunteers, a ram is offered, but of course in the Quranic story originally they don't mention who it was that Abraham takes. Of course the Bible story is completely different, but that's also in the Jewish source, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 31. And then, of course, birds and resurrection. There's just, in this one, it's very interesting. In Sanhedrin 91a in the Babylonian Talmud, there's just a reference to birds.
I mean,
and then
you listen. Look, in these 4 points, you share or 5 points, you destroyed the Quran. You literally destroyed the Quran. He gave me the source of almost everything Muhammad is talking about. I mean, what else do you want? I thought 1 or 2 points is to kiss the Quran goodbye. Now you give a 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, I did some study last week on Nimrod, and I discovered that we as Christian and Jewish scholars, theologians, do not know anything about when he was born, when did he die. We know that he lived, obviously, in Babel, but was there any connection between his timeline and Abraham's timeline? Zero knowledge. When I went to Muslim sources, guess what? They give me his birthday. They know what day he was born. It was actually
on a Monday. They know for a fact he was born on a Monday. He died on a Monday. he got revelation on a Monday, the day of the moon of all things. And there's like a bunch of these Monday things going on.
Yeah. And it was exactly around 2 o'clock because it was raining from 12 to almost 2 minutes before 2, and then stopped raining, and then he was born. See, I know that. I remember that.
I remember once going to Mecca, and I wanted to buy some souvenirs, and there was a guy who offered me the skull of Muhammad as a grown man. And he charged me $1,000, and I said it's too expensive. So he said, not a problem. I've actually got the skull of Muhammad as a 5-year-old, and it's much cheaper because it's smaller.
That is a point. No, what I'm trying to say is, how in the world the Jewish theologians, the Jewish archaeologists, the Christian theologians, the Christian archaeologists do not know any detail about Nimrod, when Muslims do not know jack about Muhammad, but they know who is Nimrod, who was his friend, where he was born, when did he live, when did he die, where he is buried. It's like,
this is confessional. This is confessional. This is a sign of allegiance to the narrative. This is by no means academic. It is by no means rigorous or historical. It is purely confessional.
Yeah, if just right now, if you go online and he asks when Nimrod was born, they will give you all the information in detail. It's like, how about just get some knowledge about your Muhammad? Forget about Jesus, forget about Abraham, forget about Nimrod. How about something true about Muhammad? Do you know anything about Muhammad? No, we don't. Like, when I was on my vacation.
Hang on. He was a white guy.
Yeah.
His thighs were white. His armpits were white. His belly was white. The whites of his eyes were white. His hair was probably white. He was the whitest of white.
Oh, no. Can I say the Shahada now? I believe you. Can I say the Shahada now? Should I wait?
Look, as your friend, I'm going to say, please wait. Just wait a little.
Okay. I'll wait. But let me share something with you about the beauty of the Muslims. So I was on that ship, and that lady, she's a Muslim lady in a hijab, of course, came by the food line to get some food on the ship. And the one thing in her mind, is it halal or unhalal food? She said, is this fish? I said, yeah, it is fish. She said, oh. She said, halal. I said, yeah, fish is halal. But I said, down there's a lamb meat. Lamb meat is also halal. She said, what is lamb meat? I said, lamb meat. Meh. Oh, lamb meat. I know lamb meat. I said, it's halal. Imagine, I start speaking to that lady from Pakistan, a Muslim Pakistani. She does not know jack about Islam. She does not speak 3 words in the Arabic except halal and mashallah. Okay, that's how much she knows about the Quran and about Islam. But she is so much concerned about halal. That is exactly the problem with, and I said it, and I will continue to repeat it. If Muslims knew Islam, if Muslims know Muhammad, they will eat nothing but the forbidden. They will not eat pork. They will not eat lamb or chicken or fish. They will eat nothing but pork, just to get even with Muhammad. They just, God help us. So anyway, they know everything about Nimrod, but they know nothing about Muhammad. Go ahead.
Pork is big here. Pork sells more than beef here in Poland. I guess that's why they've been saved from, the scourge of Islam. That would explain it. Yeah. Right. So we go into the next section. This is the Quran's Abraham. So all about the fragmentary snippets that we find in the Quran.
Yeah.
So the Quran, right? The Quranic portrayal corresponds to midrashic motifs, but lacks all of the narrative detail.
Did you tell me anything new? That's like, why are you repeating yourself? Every time you open the Quran, you're going to tell me the same line. Can you have something new now?
Right. So okay. So in the idol smashing, Abraham breaks the idols, and then he says, "Ask the big one what happened." Right. But this is an echo of Genesis Rabbah and Talmud Pesachim 118a, but it's missing Terah's shop and the full dialogue. So within the Jewish story, there's a lot more detail. He's thrown into the fire. The people say, "Burn him." God commands, "O fire, be cool and safe," or Allah commands at least. And then this is in Genesis Rabbah, but without Nimrod's role. I'll change that to Allah. So they're skipping various details, right? Yeah. So they're using pieces of it, but not all of it. Abraham reflects.
That's what always does. That's exactly what he does. Yeah.
I'll skip this one. We cover that. The sacrifice. So Abraham dreams he must sacrifice his son. But here, of course, the Quran is vague because it wants to protect its own narrative. I think that's a specific choice they made because they want to put forward Ishmael and not Isaac. Right.
Yeah. And by the way, if you look in depth about that, you find that there's contradiction even of how Allah spoke to Abraham. In the beginning, it was a vision. Later, it was a dream. I don't know if Muhammad knows the difference between vision and dream. He may be saying that one is the same.
Right. And Andrew makes a good point. It's like the audience already knows the story. They're already familiar. It assumes familiarity, so it doesn't have to fill in the details. So it's just alluding to things. So clearly it's drawing on the Torah, it's drawing on the Midrash, it's drawing on these Talmudic narratives. It's really taking from all of these stories.
Some Muslim would say that, Lloyd, why we have to repeat something we already know? I said, how do you already know? I said, what's in the Bible? Well, why do you repeat so many ridiculous stories in the Quran, which we already know just from the Quran? What is the purpose of repeating any story like Abraham, for example? 90 sometimes the name is mentioned, man, in the Quran.
Yeah, but also, then if they know it, where do they know it from? And if the Bible's corrupted, how can they say they know it? And where's the written source? Because the tafsirs are all over the place. Where is the source of knowing, right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And how come all of the stories they tell are literally myths and legends?
The more you dig in the Quran, the more you scratch your head like, what is, how in the world the scholars of Islam come up with this different interpretation for the same verse? Let me give you a good example. I know it's not Abraham, it's about Isa, son of Mary. Well, I was doing some study yesterday, recording some programs, and I found out that Muhammad in the Quran rejected the deity of Christ. And he said Allah did not take a son. And he will interpret it in many ways. So in one place, he says the Christians claim that Allah have a son. And then he goes, the Jews and the Christian claim that Allah has a son. When he went to Quran 9:30, Azir and Isa. And then he went, the Arab mushrikeen, the polytheists among the Arab, believes that Allah has a son because Allah had sex with some of the angels, the female angels, and produced a son. It's like, how in the world do you interpret the same verse 3 different ways? The only people who believe in the sonship of God is the Christians. Why you put the Jewish in it, or you put the idol worshippers, the Arabs, in it? Beat me. It does beat me.
Yeah. So also, I mean, so Abraham dreams, right? You said you don't know. We don't know exactly if it's a dream or a vision or what, right? He must sacrifice his son, who is not named conveniently, right? The son submits. Then Allah provides a substitute in the Quran 37, right? 99 to 113. But the son, shall we read that? Maybe we can read the passage in a moment.
I think I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, get the passage out, because in the end, you see it is Isaac. It's not Ishmael.
No, we'll have a look at it. So just briefly, the son, however, in the Quran is not named. In Genesis, though, it is specifically named. It's Isaac in Genesis 22. But then later, the Tafsir insists it is Ishmael. Now, the Genesis account, let's assume the Genesis account goes back to 2000 AD. I mean, that's what's it, 1800, 1600, 1500 AD.
Yeah.
Let's just take a number, 1500 AD. That's right. Let's just pick a random number.
Moses' timing, he wrote it by his hand. Yeah.
Moses' time. Let's make up a random number, 1500 AD. Right. Sure. Now the Quran is written when, but the tafsirs that talk about this, that make the claim on the name, because the
100 years later.
This is 800s.
800 after Christ. So 8 plus 15 is 2300 years later.
Yeah, so this is like the 8th or 9th century these tafsirs come from. And we've got to believe a source that comes literally 2,500 years after Genesis is written. I mean, do you accept the primary record, or do you accept a source 2,500 years later that lacks detail?
But Lloyd, if you read the interpretation of the scholar, you see them, they're confused. They do not know if it's Isaac or Ishmael. As a matter of fact, let me give you. If you can get to Quran, I will share with you Al-Tabari or Al-Qurtubi, and either one, it will tell you Isaac or Ishmael. They do not know. When it's written, they insist. I'm sorry, I don't think they insist, because let me show you here. Here we go. 100. Okay, let me see. Okay, here, and we redeemed him with a great sacrifice. واختلف الرسول في المبدئ. Listen this. واختلف أهل التأويل في المبدئ. Scholars or the interpreters disagree about who is the one who were saved from the sacrifice from the children of Abraham من أبناء إبراهيم. فقال بعضهم وإسحاق. Some of them said it was Isaac, and then he give you names like Abu Karib, Ibn Yaman, Mubarak, Al-Hasan, Al-Ahnaf, Qis, Ibn Abbas, I'm sorry, the son of Abdul Muttalib. We say we redeemed him with a great sacrifice. He said it is Isaac. Here we go. I'm reading Al-Tabari interpretation. You see what I'm saying? So it's not solid Ishmael. As a matter of fact, they do not know. But I love it here in the Tabari. It starts with Isaac. And then we go to Badr. Ibn Abbas himself said it was Isaac. The ink of the scholars of Islam stated it was Isaac. And Ibn Abbas, وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذَبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ قَالَ هُوَ أَصْحَابُ. Ibn Abbas said, and we redeemed him with a great sacrifice. He said, he is Isaac.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Yaqub, Dawood, Akrama, and Ibn Abbas, it is Isaac. I mean, how many names do you want me to give you? And then you're going to hear, obviously, the other half, which is, oh, it is Ishmael. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, there's a guy called Poofs for Islam, which I think a poof is a gay guy for Islam. He's saying, good Americans love Islam and Muslims. We will not let the media divide us. Egypt has a 10% Muslim population. This proves Christians are not persecuted in Egypt. Then he goes on, he corrects himself. Egypt has a 10% Christian population. But Egypt used to have a 100% Christian population until the 90
is not a big number to disappear. Especially when we know that when the Muslim came, they forgot to bring females with them. They just only brought the men to fight and kill the Egyptian.
Yeah. So, I mean Muslims invaded. They subjugated everyone. They enslaved everyone. They imposed their religion. They imposed the jizya tax. They terrorized the Christians, same as they do wherever they go. I mean, for instance,
you know what?
Americans are getting sick and tired. The Brits are getting sick and tired of Islam. Islam brings strife, division, rape, and it brings nothing but issues. It imposes.
It is Islam, brother. Islam brings Islam. What's wrong with you? I love what
nothing. In fact, you know why? Do you know people have Islamophobia because of Islamotrauma. Nobody has Hindu phobia. Nobody has Baptist phobia. Nobody has Baha'i phobia. Nobody has Buddhist phobia. People have Islamophobia because Islam causes Islamotrauma, right? Because Muslims cause problems. So it's very simple. I mean, Americans are getting sick and tired of Islam, right? Everyone's getting sick and tired. The Brits, Europe is getting sick and tired. We see the videos. We see the Muslims coming in, going on welfare, stealing money, not working, causing nothing but issues, wanting to rape the women. You see all the stats. This is a serious problem. And at some point, there is going to be a backlash. There is going to be a backlash.
Yeah, it's sad. It is sad, bro. I like what Charlie Kirk said many times in the past. I heard it from him many times. Immigration without assimilation is invasion. Do you know that that's exactly what happened in Egypt 1400 years ago? When the Muslims immigrate to Egypt, they never assimilate with us. They actually force us to wear different clothes, force us to cut our hair different, force us to, which is the Pact of Omar. And that's exactly what they're doing right now in the West. They're not assimilating. They will not melt in the melting pot. That's why they are invading the East and the West. Reality.
And this is things are changing, and they know it. Everyone knows it. Things are changing, and things. So let me see. So anyway, so in Genesis you have Isaac, but the Tafsir that comes 8th century, 9th century claims it is Ishmael. So let's go to your Quran.
I wish you can see that line, the green line here. It's actually Ishmael, Isaac, and Ishmael. Not insist. There's no insistence in Al-Tabari. What do you need more than Al-Tabari? Ibn Kathir, Al-Qurtubi. They actually both said Isaac and Ishmael. They do not know. Scholars disagree.
But then, how can?
are you talking about the people who live with us today, the interpretation of the modern day Muslims in the 25th century? I mean, in the year 2025? Or what do you mean by late tafsir?
I mean, then the tafsir comes much, much later than Genesis.
Yeah.
Comes like
But
over 2,000 years after Genesis, and we've got to believe the tafsir, but not Genesis, which actually has archaeological records to back it up. So,
but once again, Brother Lloyd, the tafsir of Al-Tabari, Al-Qurtubi, Al-Jalalain, they all mention Isaac and Ishmael. They don't know. All right. And by the way, I maybe shared that with you before in the best, but I think it's a good place here to repeat again my internal evidence. It cannot be Ishmael. Read the story first, and I'll share it quickly in a few words.
So this guy, I'm not sure who it is, but some guy says, contrary to the Muslim misconception, both the Bible and these verses agree that Isaac, rather than Ishmael, was the sacrificial son. The story is corrupted by Muhammad. See Genesis 22. Ishmael is not mentioned in these verses. The description of the son as forbearing is in contrast to the description of Ishmael as a wild man, a wild ass of a man. See Genesis 16:12. So we see here in Genesis, my Lord, grant me from the good. So he gave him the good news of a forbearing young man. So when he came to the age of walking with him, which is very strange because Abraham never lived in that part of the world. Apparently, Ishmael was in Mecca. Abraham was up in Beersheba in Israel.
You got it. You got it.
And he used the Burak apparently to transport himself there on a daily basis as a commute. He says, my son, surely I see in my sleep that I am slaughtering you. So maybe he had some really bad curry and it was causing him indigestion and he was seeing visions that were nightmares. It's someone, oh my father. So he said, oh my father, do what you are commanded. Slaughter me because how old was the kid at that point?
Walking, talking. I mean, I'm guessing 4, 5, 6, whatever age. Well, he understands what his father is telling him. You know, if it's a logic, I would say, Dad, you're asleep. You're dreaming. Are you out of your mind? Are you nuts? Well, what do you mean you're going to slaughter me? No, just do it. Yeah,
says,
do whatever you want, Dad.
You will find me among the patient if Allah wills. So when they surrendered and he had laid him down in his jabin and we called him, oh, Abraham, indeed you have believed the vision. Where's the story of the journey?
Look this. It started in sleep and then he ended vision. Sleep means dreaming. Vision is not dreaming. Vision is a man or a woman who will be sitting talking and he will be taken out of his body while still awake. It's not sleeping, snoring. No. It's different than dream. And then you see things. And we see that all over the Bible. But Muhammad does not know the difference between ru'ya, vision, manam, ahlam, which is dreams and sleep.
But where's the rest of the story as well? I mean, it just goes from I'm here and now I'm there. It's like, how did you get from A to B?
Well, you just we save in time. And Allah.
I mean, where are they? Where are they? What happened? How long was the journey? How did they get there? What did they do when they got there? Well, what happened?
Where, when, how, what? These are not questions to ask about the word of Allah, man. Are you an infidel? What are you? You have to believe it without questioning it. Yeah.
But then where do they get the rest of the details? If they already know this stuff, where are the details? So likewise, we surely reward the doers of good. Surely this is a clear trial. And we redeemed them with a great sacrifice.
When you go, Lloyd, when you go to scholars' interpretation, they will give you all this information you're looking for. They tell you when, where, what, who, why. I mean, literally. So you're not missing anything if you read the interpretation of the scholar, which is they actually added the information which Muhammad did not take from the Bible to the story of the Quran, and now it makes sense.
But then when you read, say, the Old Testament, there's one story, not 15 different stories, one. But if you read the Tafsirs, you get 9 different stories from 9 different scholars.
And Allah knows best. So
and Allah make it 10 different stories, and Allah knows best. So we redeemed him with a great sacrifice. What? And we left him among the others. Who? Peace be on Abraham. So we rewarded doers of the good. Surely he is of our believing servants. And we gave him the good news of Isaac. Isn't that Ishmael?
Well, that's why the problem with the scholars, they have to say it could be Isaac, it could be Ishmael, and Allah knows best.
But the
I
Quran
mean,
says Isaac. The Quran names
let me
Isaac.
look, let me take you to the true biblical account.
And we
In the
blessed
Bible, we
him
know
and
that
Isaac.
Abraham,
We,
yeah.
I'm sure it says Isaac. Unless my eyes are deceiving me here.
I mean, and even if you say that Isaac, some Muslims say, well, Isaac came later. I say, okay, and we blessed on him Ishmael and Isaac. You should put both of them here. And from their offspring, an obvious doers of good, and unjust to himself. No, a singular talking about Abraham, he's talking about Isaac after Abraham. There's no Ishmael. It does not work. But to understand the true level of that test or trial which Abraham went through, he have Ishmael with Hagar. He have to get rid of Ishmael and Hagar, just let them go, and they got lost in Be'er Faran, and then they obviously went to Egypt. She's Egyptian. She got her son Ishmael, a wife from Egypt, and then he went back to the promised land. He lived among his brothers, as the scripture foretold. But after Abraham lose his son Ishmael, now he have only his son Isaac. And the command of God is very clear. Take your son Isaac. See, not any son, Isaac, whom you love. Your only son Isaac, whom you love. That is the only thing left in his hand. And now Abraham is real old because Isaac is a grown-up young man, and offer him as a sacrifice for me on one of the mountain of Moriah, which I will tell you which one. That is a real test. You got name, you got location, you got the time, and everything in the story. So, and if it was just, one of his son, what difference does it make? Imagine if this was Ishmael, big deal. He still have Isaac. I mean, how serious the test is. You got the son of the concubine, the son of the slave, and you're going to offer him as a sacrifice. Well, maybe wonderful. I still have the son of the free woman, my real son Isaac, whom I love.
Right. But also the Quran names Isaac. So the Tafsirs are in contradiction with the Quran, essentially. Because the Quran names Isaac.
You cannot put Ishmael there. Ishmael was already gone with his mama as a child, as a babe, still breastfeed from his mama. In Mecca he was. He never saw his daddy, Abraham, walking and talking. That does not fit with the story.
Doesn't the Quran say that Abraham went to Mecca, grabbed Ishmael, and off they went to do the sacrifice?
Yeah, you can add a chapter, the second opinion by Lloyd. How about that? Second opinion by Lloyd, and you add it to whatever chapter you want to do. As a matter of fact, the Quran, what I like about the Quran, you can add any story anywhere else because it is the only book which is written out of context. So just go ahead, write a couple of verses and squeeze them somewhere, and it will be the.
So the only name named is Isaac, and the only context is for Isaac, and there's no mention of being in Mecca, but that's just assumed or implied or asserted, or from secondary sources that don't provide where they got that from, but it's definitely Ishmael.
Do you know, Lloyd, you're absolutely right. Do you know, Lloyd, if you do a study on Ishmael in the Quran, you will not even know who is Ishmael. No detail. You will never know who is Ishmael's mama.
How's that a surprise? Who's the Messiah? What is the Messiah? What does he do?
Well, but here's a problem too, which most Muslims do not know. When scholars of Islam talk about Al-Masih, the Christ, the Messiah, the Christ, they're talking about two things, have nothing to do with the true Jesus Christ. The guy who traveled all the time, Yasih, that is scholarly definition, or the guy who was washed, Al-Mamsuh. Which we Christians do not believe in that. Neither one.
Let me see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just bring up the Islamic Messiah dilemma. It's a talk I gave like 2 weeks ago, oddly enough. About this, and hold on. So basically you've got the flat feet. Okay, he's got physical traits like flat feet. Let me just continue here and just find it. So the Islamic explanations, so without going into all the details, there's a lengthy exposition within the biblical narrative on all of the signs, all of the requirements, the criteria for the Messiah, and they're extensive. They go back over thousands of years. There's numerous signs and events that and implications, right? There's anointing, there's a lineage, there's so many prophecies and so on. But the Quran,
Yeah.
So he's a priestly function. He's a high priest. He's anointed. He mediates between God and the people. There's Davidic kingship and so on. But then they claim that the Messiah means he has flat feet. He's an extensive traveler, one who
Yeah.
heals, the chosen one. But then isn't Muhammad chosen? Well, what was he chosen for? Right?
Well,
Then
but Isa was chosen to tell the people the good news of a prophet will come after him. His name is Ahmad.
yeah,
That
but
was the
then
context.
they don't provide any details because we know for a fact that with every single document that the Jews have, there's an anointing tradition, there's Israelite kingship, there's a priestly system, there's a historical context from all of these documents, and Messiah isn't just a title. It's a technical term for an office that requires literal anointing. It's a practice. It's something that is done. You receive it through a particular practice that you must undergo. So they've inherited the word, but they've lost its institutional, ceremonial, and its covenant significance. So Muslims use the term and the
Without
definition.
understanding what it is. They have
Yeah.
no idea what it is.
It's completely backwards and upside down. Yeah. So they use this, and Jesus is also consistently given this unique title amongst the prophets. Jesus is unique here, but they don't explain why. So
Actually, it's not just in the Quran, Jesus is unique. You have to understand, Jesus is the only one in the Quran which mentioned that he is wajihan fi dunya wa fil akhirah, exalted in this world and exalted in the hereafter. And also, ghulaman zakiyan mean pure or holy son. There's nobody else in Islam, according to the teaching of the Quran or the saying of Muhammad, have these positions. It's only Isa, son of Mary. He's the only one who was born from a virgin birth. Who's the only one who died and rose again. Because we know he, when you caused me to die, Quran 5:116, and we know that he was talking to Allah in the same verse. I'm saying 117, 116. He's alive. So he's dead and he's alive. He's a virgin birth, pure, holy, exalted in this world, exalted in the hereafter. I mean, who else are you going to put next to that is the son of Mary? Anybody else? Impossible. Impossible. But
Yeah.
Muslim cannot see it
So-
that way. Muslim cannot see it that way.
yeah, let me show the audience something here. This is also not very weird. I just want to go back to my document here. So there's this interesting thing. I'll skip over Sarah's laughter for a moment, right? But Sarah laughs, which is condensed from Genesis 18. But these birds restored. Here's an interesting thing, how the Quran takes an idea from the Jewish narrative and then just elaborates upon it or whatever. So Abraham asks to see resurrection. So Allah, I should change all these God references to Allah. Allah tells him to cut birds and place them on hills, and they return by his power. It's Quran 2:260, right? This has a parallel. The only parallel is in Sanhedrin 91a and b. So let me bring that up, right? And remember when Abraham said, "My Lord, show me how you give life to the dead." Allah responded, "Do you not believe?" Abraham replied, "Yes, I do, but just so my heart can be reassured." Allah said, "Then bring 4 birds, train them to come to you." Now again, we're back to 4 birds. Didn't Jesus make 4 birds out of clay? Then cut them into pieces. Was it 3? But and scatter them on different hilltops. Then call them back. They will fly to you in haste. And so you will know that Allah is Almighty, all wise. Okay? All fine and well. Now, the only reference here, the story seems to come from here, right? The body sinned as from the day that I departed from it. I am flying in the air like a bird, incapable of sin. And the rabbi says, I will tell you a parable. To what is this matter comparable? It is comparable to a king of flesh and blood who had a fine orchard, and so on. So this is the reference here, but then somehow this then becomes Abraham. So they take the bird image and then they expand upon it. It's really odd. I mean, how they get from A to B.
Yeah. Well, I want to read to you the true story in the Bible. How about that? Do you want to read what happened, really, the covenant which God made with Abraham in the Bible? Let's go to Genesis account, if you don't mind.
In the Bible.
Okay. In the Bible. It has nothing to do with the raising of the dead. It is God made a covenant with Abraham, and that's how the covenant was blood. Have nothing to do. Go to Genesis chapter 15. And we have to read the chapter. I mean, it's not big anyway. And you get to the idea. what really took place between Abraham and not Abraham. So when Muhammad say Abraham about something happened in Abraham life, it's a big mistake. But Muslims do not know it, because you could not find Abraham anywhere in the Quran. Even when he's a little boy, his name is still Abraham. Okay,
Yeah.
so the covenant between God and Abraham is actually a covenant between God and Abraham before he was blessed and became the father of many, because Abraham, the father of one, Abraham, the father of many. Father Abraham had many sons. Okay, so go ahead and read to me Genesis 15, if you don't mind.
Just a couple of points. Andrew says Muhammad uses Messiah as a title and doesn't explain it when it's not a title, it's a function. Right? So in other words, it was common knowledge for him and his tribe, and it's a very loaded word within the Jewish context. Emmanuel says, since they stole from the infancy gospel of Thomas, they even ascribe miracles to him that even Christians done, such as being able to create new life from clay. So Abraham promised a son. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and he said, Look now towards heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Cut them in quarters, leave them on hills, and they will come back to you when through Allah's power, I guess.
Now he somehow is the page of the Quran is open and he lost the Bible. No, that's not what we read in the Bible. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I know. It's just that how do you get to that story? I mean, how do you get there?
Muhammad is copying and corrupting and adding and subtracting and make up the beautiful stories of the Quran. That's the reality.
So he took unto him all of these and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another, but the birds divided he not.
No, that is the opposite of what we just read on the Quran.
So the birds were not divided, but the animals were divided.
Yeah.
And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites, and the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.
And notice here, Brother Lloyd, we do not see the Philistinites. The Philistinites were not the original people of the land, have nothing to do with the land. There was the Greek people who came to that land, obviously, later. So, from that story, we do not see any resurrection. We do not see the bird cut to pieces. And somehow he calls them and they all got together and glued together and have the feathers all fly back to Abraham. No, nothing fly to him. It is a covenant. It's a blood covenant between God and Abraham that he will have that land. The land is given to him. What is that? Even when the other creatures coming to eat and he's trying to give them away, it was a sign. It is a prophecy about what is going on with the children of Israel when they come to Egypt and how they suffer by my ancestors for 400 years. And then when the sins of the Amorite is full, then God will bring Moses to take them out of Egypt to the promised land to fulfill the promise or the covenant which he had with Abraham a good 400 years earlier. See, it's a Bible. Prophecy, fulfillment. Where can you find this in the Quran? Anywhere? Oh, we found the birds were cut to pieces, and somehow Abraham was worried about the resurrection. Notice, as we read in the Bible, Abraham believed in God, and it was considered to him righteousness. And if you believe, as is written in the Quran, don't you believe? Oh, I believe, but I want to make sure. Excuse me, what? What do you mean you want to make sure? You believe or you don't believe? Anyway.
Yeah, obviously with Abraham, all of these people in the Quran seem to be like a literary device, just a way to illustrate some very on-the-nose, blunt moral point or some agenda. They're simply used, but I mean, I'll summarize that at the end. So, but Abraham appears in the Quran just in these isolated little tiny tales that have no continuity and lack all sorts of detail.
Sure.
And then I mentioned earlier that sometimes you get these parallels to these things in the Talmud and various other sources, but the original source from the Jewish perspective is in these stories, but then there's an oral tradition that springs up from that tries to explain the details that are missing even within the Talmud and the Midrash and everything. And then these oral stories, which are very disconnected, somehow end up in the Quran.
I'm trying to figure out how in the world you can do that. I mean, it's very poorly. I don't know gibberish.
Yeah, but you know, they used to, remember the Tafsir used to be called the Israeliyat, and then eventually they had to get rid of those because they couldn't claim a connection to Jewish sources. They had to be original.
No, the connection is very there. And why? Because Allah in the Quran said they write the books by their hand and they claim it to be from Allah, and it is not from Allah. Allah here, I believe, is talking about the Talmud and the Midrash and all the legends which are written by the Jewish people. And I don't believe any of the Jewish people believe it to be Holy Bible or holy books, inspired books. But somehow Muhammad mocked it in the Quran, and at the same time he used information from it in his Quran. So I don't know. I wish I can understand Muhammad. I don't. Do you?
No idea. Yeah, okay. I don't know. It's weird. They need it to. I don't know. They need it, but they want to deny it. Like they need it. It's just so basically all these tafsirs start to patch these Jewish sources into the stories, right? Because they need to fill the gaps that are present in the Quran.
You can understand it. You cannot understand the Quran by just reading the Quran. You don't have anything to put together to make sense out of what Allah is talking about.
Yeah. So Tabari gives us the cave birth, the idol shop story. He identifies Nimrod by name. In his commentary on Quran 2157, also uses material from Genesis Rabbah, almost line for line.
But do Muslims know that? The problem is you're singing to the choir. And I'm glad we got our audience here to hear that and share it with others. So that's why it's very important for us. When you watch that video, just send it to your friends and say, please, share. Muslims need to know that.
Yeah, and then Ibn Kathir is quoting the fiery furnace story and Satan tempting Abraham at the sacrifice from the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Right, so he's obviously taking it from that source. So it's not just they not just know the Torah, right? They also know the Midrash, the Talmud. So they somehow have access to these sources as well. So the Quran is not happening in a vacuum. It's actually taking from Jewish written as well as oral sources. Qurtubi, right, expands the Midrashic motif of Abraham reasoning through sun and moon as a youth. So he's taking from the Midrash. So you can trace all of these stories.
And by the way, in the legend of the Jewish legend, this happened when Abraham was 10 days old. After he suckled the milk from the finger of from the angel Jibril, for 10 days, he started walking and talking. He walked out of the cave and he is outside and he saw the stars. It was at night. And he saw the moon, and then he saw the sun the following day, and all that happened. Actually, in the legend of the Jews, have better orders than that in the Quran of how this took place. But I don't know if Muslims will ever learn the truth about where these fairy tales of Muhammad in the Quran came from. They actually believe it to be the revelation of Allah to Muhammad through angel Jibril, coming from the guarded board.
Right.
They believe. Yeah.
It's crazy that they'll call these books corrupt and then use them.
That is what is really making the study is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I wish Muhammad never mentioned they wrote the books by their hands, because if that was the case, well, then he may think that his stories of the Quran came from the real Bible, but he knows about it.
Right. Emmanuel asks, what do you think about J. Smith's theory that the Muhammad as we know him from the Sunnah is not a historical person? I mean, I think the general idea is that the story of Muhammad as we know it is a composite. It's a composite of different figures. And they had to make him suit that they needed to fill in gaps. And they also had to move a story from, say, from the 11th century back to the 7th century. So in so doing, they had to fill in details for this whoever this composite figure is. So they would base certain aspects of his character on this particular governor or general, and then they would base other aspects of his character on one or two different preachers that were known from another period. So they made a composite man based on different individuals that would then become a unified Muhammad story. Your thoughts on that?
Think about it. 550 and for 70 or maybe 600 years before Muhammad. I mean, you talk about further away from knowledge, from access of traveling. The roads were just about built by the Romans. I mean, Jesus times. While we have enough information about Jesus outside the Bible in many historical writings, but we have nothing about Muhammad, who came 600 years later. It should be the opposite. In Muhammad days, you have more access to knowledge, more access to writing, more access to historian, we should know about Muhammad 10 times more than known about Jesus, when we do not know anything about Muhammad for a good 200 years after the claiming of his birth, 570 AD, and 40 years, grown up man. Now he's a prophet. See, we're lacking information, and this information come 100 years later. It does not make any sense. I will go with Joe Smith over any other Muslim who does not have evidence. What is your evidence? What is your proof that what you're telling me about Muhammad is true? Nothing. You have nothing.
Might have to agree. And so basically on that point, so without the Midrash, the Quran's text is unintelligible. It makes no sense. It lacks all detail. Now, but when you add it, then the Tafsir becomes coherent because you can see where the Tafsir is drawing from. But then, of course, the cost for them is that now you start to see that the Quran is not original. It's a plagiarism of existing myths, legends, and other religious writings.
That's exactly what it is. And by the way, it's not just about Abraham. It's about every other story is mentioned in the Quran. Every other story is mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah. You know, Tom, with the MHMD thing, I'd have to ask Mal about that. So I don't know enough about that to comment on that. Although I did cover before when I did my monotheism series. If you look at Abraha in the 5th century or something like that, there are inscriptions where MHMD is already well known in Arabia. There's plenty of evidence that Christianity was well established, but there were also numerous heresies. There were numerous Christian heresies that were kicked out of Rome. They ended up in Najran, and they were very active there. There was a pilgrimage site, but also there was a lot of confusion over what was true and authentic Christianity, because there were like corrupt copies of Mark floating around apparently by heretics. But that said, when the Ethiopians, Axumites, when they controlled that region, Abraha went across and he invaded, and he was controlling the region for some decades. And there's an inscription called the Abraha inscription, where he writes about MHMD, Muhammad. And Muhammad in this case specifically explicitly refers to God, and it refers to the Holy Spirit and his son Jesus. So there are inscriptions where Muhammad is referenced as Jesus, but in the oldest one that I know of, if I recall correctly, Muhammad is actually the Christian God.
And by the way, that is, Muhammad is not a name. Again, Muhammad means the praised one. I do not believe that this name, if it's a name, should be given to any person, period. Who is the praised one? If the Muslim praise Muhammad, the Muslim worship Muhammad? The praised one. Mahmud is one of the other names Muslims give to their children. The one who is worthy to be praised. I'm sorry. Ahmadu. Ahmad, you read that is throughout the writing of the David in the Psalms. I praise you. I Ahmaduka, I praise you. Ahmad, I praise.
That's crazy, but then people are growing up with an inflated name that, like, I am special. That's insane. So the
Yeah.
Quran simultaneously claims to be original, yet it requires the Jewish sources that it brands corrupt. It claims the Jewish sources are corrupt, yet it requires these very same Jewish sources while claiming to be corrupt. So it's clearly alluding to a people that know the stories of the Jews while claiming that these Jewish books are all corrupt. It just, none of it makes any sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? So the idol story, right, requires Genesis Rabbah, right? The bird story requires Sanhedrin, of course, and of course the story from the Bible of Abraham, right?
Mhm.
The sacrifice story needs the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 31 and the Tafsir, all knowingly, very clearly are copying, as you've mentioned, all of the Jewish myths and legends, as well as stories from the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. So Revelation, now here's an odd thing, okay? Just working through very careful Aristotelian logic here. Revelation cannot depend on corrupted sources. The Quran claims to be revelation from God, direct. Yet
That's what I always say. Yeah.
it is
Allah
clearly
revealed to Muhammad.
going.
Yeah. Yeah. Allah revealed what to Muhammad? What is the new information Muhammad have on his own? Nothing. You mean for me right now to get 50 books and start writing my book out of 50 books that make me a scholar?
So
I should be in jail. I should be in prison
Yeah.
for stealing all this people information.
So the Quran claims to be original,
No.
but yet
No.
it is
No.
using other sources. Yet it is dependent on those sources, but it calls those sources corrupt. Yet it claims to be revelation when it's actually just copying older stories. How is it revelation when you're simply repeating an older story? That is not revelation. That is simply a plagiarism. But you're calling the sources corrupt, but you are using the same stories. So the Quran's Abraham depends on both Genesis and it depends on the Midrash.
Do you know,
Right?
Lloyd, you know in the Bible, yes, absolutely. But do you know in the Bible, when Paul was quoting somebody else, he gives them the reference to it. When Paul was using the scripture, when he used about scripture, we talk about the Old Testament, he's telling his audience that this has come from here or from there. Why can't we have this in the Quran? If Muhammad want to copy this, so just give me the
So they're
reference.
trying to be original. They're trying to show this is original revelation.
It's not.
Yeah. So the Quran obviously is derivative. It is not revelation. It is derivative. It's a retelling of existing stories in its own way for its own purpose. It's as simple.
It's corrupt. Yeah, it's not only is telling the old information, he's corrupting it, adding, taking away from it. Do you know what the Bible, the warning God gave in the Bible in the book of Revelation, chapter 22, in the last paragraph, the one paragraph before the last? Please do me a favor. Go to the Bible right now. Go to Revelation chapter 22
Yes.
and go to the last page. All right. What did the Bible say there? Here we go. You go
If any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life and out of the holy city and from the things which are written in this book.
Can you go up a little bit before that? A little bit. The warning before. For I testify.
For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book.
Amen. You know what Muhammad did? He broke 22:18 and 22:19. He add and subtract. Exactly. Read the Quran and read the Bible. You see, he add, taken from the books which he knows it's written by their hands. It's not from Allah. And he subtract because there's not one story in the Quran is fully to understood.
Yeah.
You have to go back to the original story to understand what Muhammad's talking about.
Yeah, Andrew makes a good point. Mo unified all the idols into the idol Allah, and the unified religions, then unified all the religions into Islam. And actually, this is actually, if you go back to the archaeology, the earliest archaeology we have, modern archaeology of Arabia, the archaeologists I've mentioned, there was a guy called Kuhn, and there's a couple of others I had in my monotheism talk. They say this. They say that they simply, all they did was he just combined all of the ancient religions into one. He didn't invent a new God. He simply just merged the whole pantheon into one deity. That's a well-known concept. That's a very well-known idea within archaeology. But the problem is that academics are negligent. Usama, there's a very, very good academic. He speaks Arabic. What's his name? Good grief. I'll have it in a second. Give me one moment. Let me just bring this up. I need to find this because I think this is relevant.
My cousin. That's my cousin. You talk about my cousin? No.
Your cousin Vinny?
No, that's not him. But somebody else. Look like him.
This here, Gabriel Said Reynolds. Hold on. Let me bring this up, please. Give me 1 sec.
Ibrahim. Was he ex-Muslim?
No, he's actually a Christian, but I think his father was Lebanese. Or I don't. It's one of those stories. Anyway, here we go. So he brings up this. He makes this video. Should Christians be afraid of Sharia? And he talks about the Sharia. Okay, Gabriel Said Reynolds. You probably know this guy. Everyone will know this guy's face. So for the first time in like 1 billion years, I actually see an academic talking about the Sharia, right? And he speaks fluent Arabic and everything. So he's a well-known scholar. And he talks about a few very, shall we say, safe, very uncontroversial things about the Sharia, right? And so I posted these replies and I said to him, look, should Christians be afraid about false witness as part of the Sharia, like obligatory lying? Should Christians be afraid that whoever insults Muhammad is to be killed, whether a Muslim or a non-Muslim? Should Christians be afraid of the fact that Islam explicitly permits prepubescent ding-dong with little girls? That Sharia explicitly permits stoning to death and prepubescent marital intercourse and all of these things. And I received no reply. And so I'm thinking of making a video response. Say, look, I'd be happy to discuss these things.
Was he saying it's okay? We don't have to worry about Sharia. We don't have to be afraid of Sharia?
It's kind of he's dipping his toe and he doesn't really say anything.
Yeah, you know what? I think I have a problem with so many Christian Lebanese. I don't have to mention other names right now who are making me sick, especially those who think they're doing us a favor and they're teaching about how to minister to the Muslim people. Those who will tell you we worship the same God. There's so much similarity between us and Islam than what divide us. And Muhammad could be a prophet, and the Quran could be the revelation of God. I mean, it's so sick. I don't know what is wrong with the Lebanese people. That is the last country was destroyed by the hand of the Muslims. And they still could not see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I don't exactly. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's Lebanese or what. I mean, I think it's something that we'll have to look into it. But yeah, but I just found it that this was a very, I don't know. I wish he would actually tackle these issues and discuss them. And I think scholars are negligent. They're not dealing with these issues honestly, and clearly they don't want to avoid controversy. But I think part of his mission is to be ecumenical, whatever it is, or that's fine. But you also need to be honest, and even if it's ugly. So moving on, you can do it too. This says this was found at Birhima, Najran, Saudi Arabia, Najran. Yes, excellent, thank you. Part of a Jewish Himyaritic inscription dated to 523 AD. And it says, Rabhad bin Muhammad, by the Lord of the Jews, by the Muhammad. And then it goes on. There's another aspect to it. It says, Rab bin Muhammad, by the Lord of the Jews, by the Muhammad. So Muhammad or Muhammad here becomes God, Yahweh. Yes, Andrew, I do think they're concerned about their necks, but I actually want to make a video response. He didn't respond to my tweet messages, so I might make a video response. And then here's another one: by the power and the help and support of Rahman and the Lord of Heaven and His anointed one, King Abraha. Yeah, His anointed one, Jesus Christ. Yes, the Messiah.
He is the only one who's worthy to have the title Mahmud, Muhammad, or Ahmed, because he is God Almighty in the flesh.
Right. So basically, here's my summary of what we've done so far, right? There's a rhetorical function. Abraham's like a prototype. He usurps Abraham as a prototype monotheist, right? As a Hanif. Yeah. But the word Hanif is loaded as well. When you go back in history, that word is very pagan. So by deleting all of Abraham's Israelite context, the Quran transforms Abraham into a polemical type, he becomes the first Muslim, not the first Jew. So he says here in Quran 367, Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but a Muslim, upright. And that's the word Hanif.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
Hanifan.
I don't believe the word Hanif means upright. I mean, I don't know why is it translated like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the weird part is I did this when I was doing my monotheism series, right? The word Hanif goes back in history. It effectively refers to the pagan stone pillars, the upright pillars. Remember, Abraham is told not to worship upright pillars and not to worship trees because that was the pagan practice. So the Hanif means upright pillar, the pagan stone pillars, stone idols. So they then associate him with a stone idol, upright, because the stone idols, the pagan stone idols, were gods or were upright, were righteous. So there's a connection there to paganism, oddly enough. So he was a Muslim, upright, which means that, and this is a reference to Islam actually being based upon paganism, right? Ancient Arabian paganism. So Abraham then becomes proof that Islam, not Israel or the church, embodies true monotheism. So the narrative history is stripped away to serve as theological propaganda.
Very good point.
I'll just mark this. So yeah, so there's something very, very off about all of this. Actually, I'll just mark this in red.
Yeah.
I'll send you the document, for the usual fee, Usama.
I'd love to have it. Love to have it because I'm doing some teaching on the same subject in Arabic, and the more information I have, the better it is.
Yeah. So
now, can you translate this to me in Arabic to make it easier for me?
I will get it to you in Arabic.
You're my special friend. I really appreciate
eventually.
Eventually, not today.
Yeah, but I can send it in Arabic, but only by carrier pigeon. So
no, that'll take forever. By the time your pigeon come from Europe to me here, that'll take weeks and months. Who knows?
But I first have to cut the pigeon in 4 pieces, leave it on the hills, and then wait for it to come back. Don't worry, I got the glue. I'm going to throw some Coke on it. Coke adds life, so I've got the glue and the Coke adding life, and then we're good.
That'll help.
Yeah. No, we're good. We're good. So that. Well, what do you think of my conclusion here? What does the audience think of my conclusion here?
I think you're hitting a very important point, very important fact. I don't think Muslims have an answer. What answers are they going to give to us? It's a myth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, look, a lot of this is new to me. If I understood this better, I'd probably write a better presentation or understand this better. I don't as yet. I mean, it was the first time I went through it just for you. But the more you study, but also, I mean, if you read the Quran, you start to go through the Tafsir and you go through then it starts to make more sense. But hold on, if you go through the Sirah, right? If you go through the Sirat Rasulullah, then Abraham is explicitly called the first Muslim, because in the Sirah they send Muslims north, south, east, and west to look for the original religion of Abraham. They speak of the original religion of Abraham. And then Abraham is discovered never to have been a Jew. He was never a Christian. I don't know how Abraham could have been a Christian anyway. I have no idea, but fine. Okay, whatever they want to tell us. But then they discover the religion of Abraham before he became a Jew. And we know that before Abraham became the first Jew, the father of the Jews, he was a Sabaean. They worshipped the moon and the stars. So therefore,
I believe all the people of Babel were worshiping.
It was the religion of Babylon. It was, So Muhammad says, no, I follow the religion of Abraham before he became a Jew, which is the religion of the Sabaeans.
Yeah. But if you go to Genesis 18 and you see the Lord spoke with Abraham and Abraham spoke with the Lord, and he knows he was speaking with the Lord. Obviously, we do not know every word. What took place between Abraham and the Lord here in Genesis 18, and I can use it to say that Abraham believed in God. He believed in Jesus before Jesus came in the flesh, and he knows that Jesus he's talking with, someday he will come from his descendants as the seed which will bring a blessing for the whole world. So I can say Abraham is the father of all the Jewish people because he is the beginning of the Jewish, from him Isaac and Jacob and 12 sons, and here we go, the 12 tribes of Israel. But I also believe personally that he knows God, he believed in God the Father, he believed in the Spirit of God, he believed in Jesus, the Word of God, whom he talked with. That's why Jesus said in Matthew, in the book of John, Abraham have seen me. When they just said, before Abraham I am, he said, wait a minute, what do you mean before Abraham you are? You're not even 50 years old. He said, yep, Abraham saw me and he rejoiced to see me.
Right.
So did Abraham believe in Jesus? It could be, absolutely. Why not? How can he believe in God, does not believe in the true nature of God as God have described himself from Genesis 1? Triune, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Right. So to conclude this section, I've got another section coming, but you have the Torah, right, which is a continuous patriarchal biography, right? That's the biblical story, a continual patriarchal biography. Then you have the Midrash and the Talmud, and these are expansions. They fill Abraham's legend. This functions roughly like some of the apocryphal works that were written in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century by, like the infancy gospel of Thomas, all of these Gnostic works and stuff. They try to fill in questions like, where was Jesus between 12 and 30 or 28 or whatever the case is.
Right? To make it, but that's not actually what the scriptures teach. Yeah,
exactly. But they try to fill in little gaps. They try to fill in details, and this is more or less vaguely where this lands. But also, this also preserves oral stories and so on. So these are expansions. They fill Abraham's legend, right? The Quran, though, these are fragments. I mean, all of the Quranic stories are fragments. All of it is just fragments, right? That are borrowed, but they are stripped of coherence. And that is the most annoying thing. These are fragments that are clearly borrowed, borrowings, not original, stripped of all coherence. And then you've got the Tafsir, which re-imports all of the Jewish law to repair the Quranic vagueness.
You got it right, brother. I love this 4 point. So powerful. Without the tafsir, Muslim will get lost and they have no idea. They don't know jack about Islam, the Quran, or Muhammad. You need the scholars of Islam to fill in all the missing information and make some sense out of what is written in the Quran.
Yeah. So, so for the audience, I redid this like 2 or 3 times because Usama asked me if I'd have a look at it, and we didn't have like a huge amount of time because we spoke about it, and I said, sure, I'll get something ready, right? If I had more time, if I normally I spend sometimes weeks on a project and then or months even of research, but then I also didn't want this to be overly detailed, like too much stuff, But I think we have enough here to work with. But I think the conclusions, just based on what we have here, because I think I'd write something a little better if I spent more time. But given that I think what we have here is valid. There's definitely the conclusions that I'm drawing here. I think between this and this as my conclusions, if you take anything away today and from this talk, I think this is going to be something very, very valid. What does the audience think? What do you think, Usama?
It's so powerful. I'm just thinking what Muslim would say if you present these facts and this information to the Muslim, not the naive Muslims who are, gullible and believe whatever the Imam said. They will believe whatever. But I'm talking about scholars of Islam. Can we send that to a guy like Imam Omar Slimani or maybe Imam Yasser Qali? Does he have an answer? Do you think anybody alive today who have logic and common sense, somebody can understand what we're talking about here? Does any of these so-called scholars of Islam have any answer for this information? Of course not. It's over. It is over for more.
Yeah. Now, the contradiction that we're left with is, I think, a fatal contradiction. The Quran rails against corrupted scriptures, the corrupted Bible, but it cannot tell Abraham's story without those very same scriptures.
Without these corrupted books.
So Abraham, go on.
Yeah, you can easily just forget about all the Quran and all these corrupted sources and just read the Genesis account. You will know everything you want to know about
Abraham. I would be a much happier man, to be quite honest. My brain would thank me. So Abraham...
And if you read, Brother Lloyd, and if you read the Genesis account, you don't need scholars' interpretation. You don't need Jewish or Christian theologian to tell you what God meant by what he said, because it's already there. Everything is there.
Yeah, no. So in Islam, Abraham is not a historical patriarch. He's a rhetorical device for Islamic identity. He gives them legitimacy. It's an attempt to co-opt him for legitimacy. So the Quranic Abraham is basically derivative myth-making. It pretends to be unique. It pretends to be original, but it is literally derivative myth-making. It's a mosaic. It's a mishmash of midrashic fragments masquerading as revelation.
And the fact is, you could not know who is Abraham by just simply reading that which is written in the Quran, because you do not know who is his father. Even when he gave us a name, Azar is not Abraham's father. His name is Terah. So you don't know where Abraham lived. You do not know when Abraham lived. You do not know who is Abraham's father. You do not know who is Abraham's children. I hate to say that you don't know Abraham's children. You assume that Isaac and Jacob as the two sons of Abraham. Wrong. And you're missing all the children of Ishmael. You're missing all the children of Keturah. You don't know jack about Abraham by reading everything written in the Quran. And as we repeat again, the details are missing. There's no information there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so he's trying to, Muhammad here, whoever Muhammad is or the authors of the Quran were, I mean, I think authors is a valid conclusion to draw. They are trying to usurp Christianity, but even prior to that, they're trying to usurp Judaism at its root by going to Abraham. I mean, clearly, it's a very transparent attempt and a very bad one at that. And this is a summary table. This is not the full table. I've got a much more detailed one down here. Okay, so I just thought maybe we can just do a summary table and an analysis. So let me just move this over a little bit. I've got another screen in the way of the other screen, so I can't always see very well. Okay, so let's do a summary, right? This is a comparative table of Abraham's story. So your theme or your episode is his birth, right? In Genesis, you have a normal genealogy, Genesis 11. In the Midrash and the Talmud, he's born in a cave and Nimrod hunts him. In the Quran, nothing.
None. He forgot to mention that portion. I was like, okay, skip, move on.
And the Tafsir imports the Midrash.
Sure.
Right? Copy, paste, Control C, Control V. Then
Control
discovery
C,
of God. Okay, that's the theme here. God reveals himself, Genesis 12. Right? In the Midrash and the Talmud, he rejects the sun, moon, and the stars. In the Quran, Quran 6, 75 to 79, they speak of the stars and the moon. Right? And in the Tafsir, again, expands this Quranic episode with the Midrash.
Yeah.
Then breaking the idols. It's absent in Genesis. In the Midrash and the Talmud, you have the idol shop, and he smashes the idols.
You need to go to Judges. If you want to see the breaking of idols, you should go to Judges and you go to Gideon, who broke the idols. And same question you read in the Quran: who break our gods?
So we should say this is in Judges and Gideon.
Yeah, that's a place where I'm assuming Muhammad copied his story from. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just say see Judges and Gideon. Okay, so it's a good catch. I didn't know that. Let me just change the color here to gray just to mark it as... Okay, so I'll save this and I'll send it to you for the usual fee, right? I said, what was it, $5 we said?
Hey, whoa. I'm helping. I should get discount here. Yeah, give me at least $1 off here. Come on, man.
Okay.
$5. I'm going to go broke by the end of this study here.
Okay, so then of course within the Midrash Talmud, the idol shop, okay, and then in the Quran, apparently it says you have to ask the big idol. So they changed the story slightly, right?
Yeah,
there's a different story, but then of course the Tafsir imports the Midrash story. The fire story absent in the Bible, right?
Whoa. What do you mean absent? You need to go Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Okay, fine. You know what? This guy
Daniel,
is Usama guy. You know?
Shadrach.
I missed that. You see?
Just make Daniel. Go to Daniel. See Daniel. Like you bought Genesis.
Daniel 3. Okay, so hang on. Let me just mark this as the right color. Daniel 3. See Daniel 3. Okay. Hold on. Good point. Actually, that's a really good point, though. See Daniel 3.
Thank you. You're my special friend. And I really mean it this time.
When you say special, that's why I'm charging you $5. That's for therapy.
Oh, you're not my special. I don't know you. Move on.
This is Bo rejecting Sabaeanism, exactly. But because he is called a Sabi, he's literally called the Sabi. That is part of the tradition, and it's clearly reflected. And then
Is
also
that
the whole
when we talk about Sabi, that's why Muhammad praised the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians, the Sabians in Quran 262.
say again, please. Sorry.
Is that's why Muhammad praised the Christians and the Muslims and the Jews in Quran
Yes, and
262.
the Sabis. Yeah, we spoke about it on the channel before because Muhammad in the Hadiths in the Sahih is called the Sabi. Okay, so then in the Midrash and the Talmud, Nimrod throws Abraham in the furnace, right? In the Quran, the fire becomes cool. They expand upon it slightly, but they don't mention Nimrod, I think. And then, of course, the Tafsir expands on the story, but it names Nimrod. But the only source where Nimrod is in the Midrash and the Talmud.
By the way, if you want to talk about the contradiction, in the Quran, Abraham's father was an infidel. That's why he could not intercede on his behalf, because Allah told him, don't pray for him because I'm not going to listen. He's an infidel. But in the interpretation of the Quran by Muslim scholars, Abraham actually, father said a powerful statement. He believed in Abraham and in the God of Abraham, who saved him from the fire. So that itself is a great contradiction. Did Abraham's father die as an infidel, or did he believe in the Quran because Allah saved his son from being burned? Even though he stayed in the fire 40 or 50 days.
50 days. I remember that. Like 60 days, and his mother joins him for lunch or something.
And actually, his mama, listen, his mama said, "Oh, Abraham, son, babe. You see, what, mama? Can you ask your Lord to let me come in?" He says, "Sure, come on in." She went and visited with him, have a cup of hot tea, and she left.
So, okay, so I have checked your reference, Andrew. So the fire became cool motif. Quran 2169 mirrors the Jewish Midrash. It's not about a translator's name error. So Nimrod casts Abraham into a furnace, and God cools the fire. That's in Genesis Rabbah 38:13 and Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 26. The Midrash itself stems from rereading Ur of the Chaldeans as a furnace episode and resonates with Daniel 3. You're right, Usama, not from a mistranslation.
Right. Right. I don't know what it is, but I'm right.
Okay, you're right. You're actually right. So,
can I get another discount now since I'm right? Can I get a discount?
You get your $1 off, man. You know.
Thank you. You're my friend. Yeah.
Sacrifice. Okay, the sacrifice. Genesis 22 names Isaac. However, in the Quran, Isaac is willing, but Satan tempts Abraham. Okay, I'll just make a note here. Okay, which is kind of an additional section in the Quran. That's in Midrash. In the Midrash, Isaac is willing. Satan tempts Abraham. In the Quran, there's an unnamed son, although eventually they do name Isaac right after that story. And then, of course, the Tafsir identifies as Ishmael, but borrows all the Midrashic details. Right? Then the hospitality, okay, that's the theme. Genesis 18:3 of angels and Sarah laughs and all of that. The Midrash expands upon the angel visit. The Quran obviously is a fragment.
Whoa. Actually, we have a contradiction there. One time she laughed, another time she slapped her face and she screamed.
That's in the Quran, right?
Yes, in the Quran there's contradiction.
Not in Genesis.
Sarah laughed, or she slapped her face and she said, "Woe to me." So you can say laugh and cry or slap her face. Yeah, that's good. I love it like that.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let's make it 1 and 2.
Okay,
Two different versions, okay? And then, of course, the Genesis is the source here for the Tafsir. Then the bird's resurrection, totally absent in Genesis, totally absent in the Bible. In Sanhedrin 91a, you've got the birds that are slain and revived, although Sanhedrin 91 just mentions birds, but it's an oral tradition that takes that and then expands it. So it's not written, it's actually an oral tradition, expands upon that into the birds.
Just in the Bible, it's not a bird, it is a sacrifice. The covenant, the blood, just put under the word absent blood covenant. It's a blood covenant, not the bird, but other creature besides the bird. Blood covenant. Genesis, just put Genesis 15, if you don't mind.
Okay, Genesis 15. So then, in the Quran, the 4 birds are reassembled.
Yeah,
and of course, the Tafsir lifts the story directly from the Midrash.
Yes, sir.
So I think we can maybe end this section here before I get to the maybe just end of here for this section. So the Quran is not concise. People say it's concise. No, it's incomplete. It's fragmentary, right? The Abraham narrative is a secondary story. It is not primary. Even though they claim that Abraham is the founder of the Muslim religion, right, of Islam, he's actually completely secondary in the story. The whole story, he's just a device to push a particular set of precepts, right? Now, you cannot reconstruct Abraham from the Quran without borrowing from the corrupted scriptures that Islam condemns. Also, from the secondary Jewish scriptures, the Talmud, the Midrash. And this contradiction undermines the Quran's claim to originality, because you cannot reconstruct the story without going to the Jewish sources.
Original. You have to remember now, Allah and Muhammad assured us that all this was written 50,000 years before creation. I mean, if it was on the guarded board, it must happen, because Allah knows it's coming in the future. So it's not just the original story, it is the original of the original story. It was there before there was creation. That should make your mind just go
backwards.
Lord.
Yeah. So the Quran's Abraham narrative is secondary. It's not primary, because it presents Abraham's story in fragmentary, disconnected scenes with lacking detail, right? That lack all of the genealogical, chronological, and dramatic coherence in Genesis, right? All the key episodes. Oops, let me just take that back. All the key episodes, like the idol breaking, the fiery furnace, the celestial reasoning, all lifted from Jewish Midrash and Talmudic traditions, not Genesis, which tells you that this is not the biblical story, and it's presented without the necessary context or the narrative flow to be intelligible on their own. I think this last section is a good summary, this last couple of pages.
Which you can do another session about contradiction in Abraham in the Quran, not the Quran and Bible, Quran and Quran. There's plenty of contradictions. I mean, it will blow your mind.
Yeah. No, I've got a longest analysis here, and then so you want me to do contradiction on Abraham in the Quran. Okay, so I will add this to the notes. I will just add this here. Let me just add another page.
Contradictions, because for example, in one place Abraham broke the idols, and he told them after they brought him in that the biggest one who's the one who damaged it, okay, and they asked who did it. Another one, they actually caught Abraham in the act. He was broken them, and they were hurrying back, and they caught him breaking the idols. So they didn't ask the question, who did this to our gods? You know what I'm saying? Some of this contradiction is beyond to swallow. You cannot swallow.
Okay, well, yeah. So that's interesting. I mean, hopefully we've encapsulated, a good conclusion with this so far. And we can finish off.
I love this conclusion, man. I love it, every step on it, because it's get to the point, and people can go and check it out. Make sure that examine our teaching here, show us where we're wrong.
No, the Quran is the corrupted Bible the Muslims cry about. Exactly.
Yeah. Have you ever heard any Muslim complain to you in an email or something, say you're wrong, you're lying, you're not telling the truth? Anybody want to challenge
never
you?
Happens. No. Muslims always come to me and say, that's fantastic research, Lloyd. That was accurate, reliable, solidly sourced. You used all the citations. You interpreted it all correctly. And I get compliments.
Yeah, believe it or not, last week, I know yesterday, I just found the bad news. I was supposed to go to Atlanta to meet with a Muslim couple. He is Egyptian, she's American. They've been married for years. They have children. First, they said they want to bring the imam, the Muslim scholar, to be in the meeting. And I told her father, absolutely, that'll be even better. So I was happy that the imam is going to show up. And then they want to know my last name, because Usama is not good enough. They want to know my last name. So I gave them my last name. And then they went online and saw some of our teaching, some of our videos. And here's the bad news. Yesterday, the imam and these two couples are not going to meet with us. I mean, did I make a mistake to let them know who I am? Should I trick them and say,
maybe we should have been more respectful and been more ecumenical? I don't know, man. I shouldn't laugh.
Usama Johnson. Hey, from now on, if somebody asks about my last name, I say, my name is Usama Johnson, and see what's going to happen. Maybe
Usama Darkwing, okay?
What?
Just Darkwing. Just.
But then they figure out that's a fake name, and the negative is not real.
I think they look at Darkwing Duck and be very impressed, actually. They go like, you're that guy? You're like, yeah.
You would love to meet with me, huh?
Yeah, this is something Andrew just sent. This is from sunnah.clown. It's a website. It's a very famous website, sunnah.clown. And it says here, Sharik told that God's messenger ordered geckos to be killed, saying that the gecko blew on Abraham. Al-Quran 21:68 speaks of Abraham being put into a fire. In this tradition, it is said that the gecko blew on the fire to stir it up. Bukhari and Muslim.
Yeah, we talked about that in our last Friday program. If people are interested to actually, no.
Nasty
We studied
gecko.
it. We're going to be talking about it tomorrow. And here's a question for Lloyd, for our dear brother here, whoever listened to us. How far did this small, tiny creature, which is like 5 or 6 inches, how far he got close to the fire to blow air on it when it was so hot?
Look, I mean, you know,
and don't forget,
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to explain this to you. Allah knows
best. How about the rest of the creatures who are blowing water, dropping water? Or I said in my study, actually, I believe the birds and other creatures were pee. They were peeing water on the fire, trying to stop it. That's why, you know, Allah praised and Muhammad praised all these creatures.
Yeah.
Except this.
So guys, yeah, just watch out for those geckos. I mean, what else can we say? Muhammad.
By the way, listen, Mama Aisha, radiallahu anha, Mother Aisha, radiallahu anha, she used to have a spear by her door, and her neighbor come and say, "What is the spear for?" She said, "That's to kill these creatures." You know. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to reinforce the bottom of all my doors now. You know. I'm gonna have to consider anti-gecko protection for your house. Get insurance on it. Speak to there's actually an insurance company called Gecko. Just talk
Do you
to them
think
about
Geico company can file lawsuit against Muslims who believe in that? Because Geico, they all built on the Geico.
I thought it was Gecko.
No, but what happened? The insurance company go broke.
Oh, boy.
Nobody will buy the insurance anymore because all the Muslims hate Geico and nobody's gonna use it. You know.
Oh man, there's so much stuff. I'm sorry that they wouldn't talk to you, Usama. Maybe we should have had more respectful commentary and been very academic, but some of this stuff just eats my brain, man.
And can you imagine that her father is really heart is broken because he really want me to go and talk with her and him because they're going to Egypt. They're going to be there for 10, 20 years. He does not know how long. He does not even know if he's going to see his daughter again or not. But we need to pray. So guys, please keep this brother in your prayers, and his daughter and her husband in your prayers, and the children, the grandchildren in your prayers, because you never know. Maybe they go to Egypt, and the Lord will send somebody even much better than me to share the truth of the gospel with them there, to lead them to Christ there in Egypt. You never know. You never know.
No, that's wow. Yeah, so then we shall call it an evening here. I think we can finish the rest next week.
Wait a minute. It's still afternoon here. What do you mean call it evening, man? It's afternoon. I have a lot to do today.
I'm in a different time zone.
Wait a minute. You mean the earth is not flat?
I don't know. Personally, I haven't seen it from space myself yet, but
I think you're lying. You're trying to repeat
it's a side of it. They gave me one time and you one time. For me, it's 8:39. For you, it's probably 12:39 or 1:39. I don't know. So
1:59. But I'm sorry, that is a deception. The work of the Jews, the infidels who invented the internet, they invented the computers. They make this computer act like that, just trying to prove that Allah is wrong in Islam. But you were wrong. It is all the same time. It's perfect time. It's the same time. You follow the infidels, you know, because you're an infidel yourself, aren't you? Aren't you?
Right. So yeah, there's no rational way to answer that. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet. You know.
Oh. See, if you have this computer made in Saudi Arabia, I promise you, it will be the same time. It doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah, the flat feet. Yeah, Jesus, the Messiah's got flat feet because the earth is flat. I mean, come on, man.
Exactly. Think about it. If you have a little bit curve in his feet, then that proves the earth is curved.
So that explains it. The earth is flat, therefore the Messiah has flat feet. And
Mashallah.
Yeah. So there you go. We have now figured out another Quranic mystery. So guys, I think, we'll call it a night here. Hopefully this has been educational. And hopefully I think the conclusions that I provided, I think are pretty solid.
Beautiful. Need a little bit more to touched up. It'll be great. Don't forget to send it to me now.
I will
And
send
I
it
owe
to you
you
by pigeon
$4.
as soon as the pigeon gets assembled.
No. Send it by email. Let's use the infidels internet thing, and I'll send you $4. The $4 are going to be in check in the mail, coming to you with the pigeon.
Okay, I'm going to send it by pigeon email very soon. So, guys, thanks all very much. If the earth is round, how can you do the 5 prayers of the fast?
Good night, my Lord. God bless you all. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
God bless you also. Bye bye.